All right, so in our last video, we set up our title navigation sort of overlay for our background video. Now we're going to do some 3D rotation hover cards showing some of the movie posters and a little white star line ticket. So if you want to learn how to do the perspective and have things rotate when you scroll past them into view, stick around. All right, so looking at our site, the finished version here, we are just gonna see these white star line boarding passes right down here. When we scroll past them, there's a little animation and they turn around to reveal another picture on the back. So we've got two divs stacked on top of each other essentially, and force perspective hides the image when it's not facing us. And then we've got these beautiful posters here. So we're gonna show you how to set that up. Let's dive right in. So before we finished our navigation, we had our Titanic title right up here. So next thing we're going to do, with our body selected, we're going to add a new section. We're going to call this ticket poster section. Since we got white star line tickets and Titanic posters, we'll just call it ticket poster section. Not going to give it a set height or anything, I'll just let it be auto based on the tickets that we put inside it in a second. I'm going to add a div inside of this to act as the sort of wrapper container for the tickets itself. That way we can control them a little more easily. I'm going to call it ticket poster container. So we've got the ticket poster section as the main section, and that again, sections are important for site breakdowns, SEO and things, so it's good to label that and have that kind of indicating this new chunk of content. But then I'm going to have the ticket poster container just so we can control what lives inside it a little more easily. So, ticket poster container. So inside the ticket poster container, I'm going to add another div, and this is going to be card wrapper. This is where our images are going to live. We're going to stack two images on top of each other, facing the other way around, so they can turn over when we want them to. So make sure we have card wrapper selected. We're going to give it a set height of 450 pixels. And the width will be 300 pixels. Great, so now when we scroll down, we can see it starting to take shape here. We've got card wrapper. I'm going to make sure our card wrapper is positioned relative, so that way when we affect the container, they'll respond accordingly. And then I'm just going to copy this 2 more times. Great, so you now see how we have 3 ticket poster containers, or card wrappers, sorry, stacked on top of each other. They all have the same class, card wrappers, so when we style one of them, they'll all be affected, which is great. So we don't actually want them stacked on top of each other, right? We want them centered in the middle there, like we have here. So I'm going to make sure the ticket poster container is selected, because that's the container where the card wrappers live. I'm going to click Display Flex, and already you can see that it deleted all that space beneath. And now you see that they're side by side here. You know, I can give them a little background color so it's easier to work with here. I can pick anything. Great. And now card wrappers, all that. Ticket container, I'm going to center these. So we displayed at flex. I'm going to center. There we go. So now we've got our 3 tickets. Great. So now our first card wrapper. This is going to be our left card. I'm going to add a little combo class here so we can add some specific styling, because you know how some of them are, if you see here, the one on the left is angled to the left, this one's angled to the right, and this one's kind of just sitting centered in the middle. Since they all have card wrapper as the main class, that's good for dimensions and kind of the base styling, but if we were to rotate this left one, they all would rotate to the left because they all have that card wrapper class. So to avoid this, we can just add a combo class that tells it to keep that base styling, but also update when we want to give this one its own styling. So I'm going to give this another combo of left card. Left card here, I'm going to add an image inside of the div. I'm going to choose one of the posters. You can do this one, great. And I'm going to make the ticket image width and height 100%. There we go. So you see it stretches out, and you can play with the dimensions if you're using different images. That 400 by 350 kind of fits this file size, so they don't kind of distort the aspect ratio of these posters. Another image, and this one will be the ticket, so the white star line ticket. Great. So now they're stacked relatively on top of each other, right? They're just kind of respecting each other's space and pushing it aside. We don't want that. Really quick, let's clean up. So it's going to be a movie poster. And this will be ticket. All right, so movie poster. Let's make sure this is not positioned static or relative. We want to make it positioned absolute. Oh, don't be afraid of that. There we go. So technically, if we look in here, we have our card wrapper, and it has the ticket and the movie poster. But now that they're absolute, they're just stacked on top of each other. So if I click on the poster here, and I just click display none, you'll see the ticket right behind it, right? Okay, I'm gonna go back to display block for a second. So now what we can do, we want the ticket to appear first, right? Because it's like they're being introduced to Titanic, they have their ticket, they're gonna jump on board the White Star Line ship, and then it'll turn and show you the movie poster. So right now we have them stacked, but we want this one to turn around. So I'm gonna add a little effect here on the card wrapper, and this is our left card, remember, so it's not affecting all of them, just the left card this way. So with our card wrapper selected, we can go down to 2D and 3D transforms, yes, that's the word. I'm going to make sure it has a children perspective. So when we affect the children perspective, we can give it something like 1200. This is the container, card wrapper, right? And inside are the two images. So if the children have perspective, that way, when we rotate them along the X or the Y axis or the Z axis, it is recognizing that 3D space. So as long as we set the perspective on the parent, the children can dance and do whatever they want within their container. So we're gonna click on our card wrapper, because we're gonna move this whole thing down a little bit. See how this one is on a different level? They're kind of angled outwards. So make sure the card wrapper is selected. We're gonna do a transform here. And we can rotate this guy -10 degrees on the Z-axis, so it just tilts out a little ways. And these all have to be actual individual transformations. You can't just group them all into one. So that is our rotate. We're going to add another one for our card wrapper. This is just going to be a move, and we're going to move it 20 degrees on the X-axis and 40 degrees on the Y-axis, so it just goes down a little ways right there. Nice. And now we're going to go to our movie poster, and we're going to add another transformation here, and we're going to make sure there's a rotate property. We're going to rotate the Y 180 degrees. So that way, it completely turned around, right? But we still see it. So what we can do now, so with our movie poster selected, we can just click on the three little dots right here, transform settings, and right here is backface visibility. So what this is saying is that in a 3D space, when something turns around, right now we're seeing through it, so it just looks like a backwards image, but if we turn backface visibility to hidden, it'll disappear. And now we see our ticket. Ah, there we go, because that's absolutely positioned right behind it, right? So now instead of seeing the back of the Titanic poster, we just see the image coming through because the other one's turned around. Nice. Now we can do similar things to the other ones, right? So this middle one, we're going to make sure we're in the card wrapper. I'm going to add the two images. First one will be, let's do the main poster, right? And I can give this a property of poster, right? Movie poster. Great. And it already is absorbing all the properties we set, right? So it's got the 100% width and everything. It has the rotation happening, which is good. I'm gonna go down here, make sure we're in card wrapper. I'm gonna add the other image for the ticket. Okay. And I'm gonna make sure this has a ticket class. Wonderful. So then our poster should be living behind there as well. So for this, I can do the same thing. I'm gonna add two images. Let's use, this one, right? Yeah, we didn't use that yet. This will be called poster, movie poster. And make sure card wrapper is selected, add another image. Ticket. And ticket class. Great. But remember how we had some little transform here, so we got that angle there? We can do the same thing for here. So we can add another combo class, but this time it'll be right card. So make sure we're in our card wrapper right card combo class here. We can go down to transforms. So we're going to add a move class, or a move property of -20 on the x-axis and then 40 on the y-axis, so it goes downwards. Great, and then we're going to add another transform that affects the rotation, and it'll just be -10, oops, +10 on the z-axis. Great, so now they're all angled out appropriately, but you see how this one's overlapping a little bit? Remember the z-index? That's overlapping in the 3D space, going forwards or behind you. So right now, the right ticket has a higher z-index than the other one. So since they all have the same class of card wrapper, but this one has that combo class of card wrapper right, I can just make sure I'm clicked on this. Right now they all have the same z-index of 0, but I can just make this one -1, boom. And now the middle one has a z-index of 0, so it's 1 higher, so it will stack on top of it. We've got our tickets here, and we've got our posters all hidden behind. So now what we want to do is have them flip around when the user scrolls past this section in the live view. So when we preview our site, you'll see how the tickets are still there. That one is missing because it has a lower z-index, so it's being hidden away. But you can see how the section itself will appear on the loading screen, which we don't want that. Remember how the Titanic title navigation did the same thing? So we have that interaction that we created, right? All elements in. So now we can go back to that, and that's going to be on the page load. We have this all elements in interaction. Right now we have the title overlay coming in. The opacity fades to 100. Now this is where we're going to add the fade-ins for all of the sections that we're building. So let's make sure we have our ticket poster section, because that's the whole thing where all the tickets live. We're going to have that. Hide and show. Initial state. Display none. And then we're going to add another hide and show property. I'm going to display that flex. Oops, I'm going to display it block because the inner container is flex, so that's why it's like that. So we display this block, and this is going to be the delay of 15 seconds. Just like our Titanic title and navigation was delayed 15 seconds. Great. So let's make sure these are connected, so it's not 15 and then another 15. All right, and then actually for just timing purposes, since we're going to be doing this a lot for styling and everything, I'm going to reduce the time that all the elements show up. 15 for the final project is enough time, but each time I'm showing you a little detail and adjustment we make, I don't want to wait 15 seconds. So I'm going to add just something less. I'm just going to add a 3-second delay for all of these things. So delay, 3 seconds, delay, 3 seconds. Great, so now when I preview this, 1, 2, 3, see how they both faded in? Nice. Well, this one actually faded because it has opacity. But the other one thing you can do is do the same opacity for each of the sections we're building. That definitely works, it just takes a little more time. Or we can just make sure we have our section highlighted here, ticket poster section. We can go to add an element trigger to this, and we do when scroll into view, we're just going to add fade. Fade in, great, that's all it is. So that way, however you have this element appearing, whether it's flying in, sliding in, popping in, whenever that comes in, it'll fade in. So we have it waiting a few seconds, but when that happens and the user scrolls in to view, it'll fade in. Great. And you can offset this, meaning don't have the browser register that you're scrolling over it until you're maybe like a certain percentage beneath it. So that, because sometimes if you scroll by an element and it does start to appear, an animation can happen before the viewer actually sees it. So if you add an offset property to that, you can scroll a little ways past it so it's actually in view before it fades in or does whatever you tell it. So now we have a fade in property, preview, great. So now we can close that out. And if we go back to our all elements in, play this, 3, 2, 1, title, and the tickets fade there. Great. So we can actually go back to our ticket section now, because now we want to do the turning around, right? See how they flip around from before? Really quick, guys, just want to interrupt. That right card that we built earlier, remember I gave it a z-index of -1, so it appears beneath. It's also appearing beneath everything else, so now it's not letting us click on it or interact with it. So to change that, I'm just going to add a combo class to the middle card. That way we can change each card's individual z-index, so we don't have to worry about what we can and can't click on. Let's just look at that real quick. Also, if you're getting any value out of this video, appreciate a subscribe and a like. Let's get back to it. So I added another combo class to the middle card here. I just have, what is this, card wrapper center, so that way I can add its own z-index, because when I was changing that one, since it was the one that I initially called card wrapper, all the other ones were getting the same z-index. But now with the combo class, I just gave it a z-index of 1, pops it above, and now it rests over the tops of the other ones. But I can still click on the right and the left ones, because it's not hidden away from some negative z-index. So to make sure all these cards can flip and we can have it all live in the same animation, I'm just gonna target the ticket poster container, which is where they all live, right? And I'm gonna do a element trigger. When I scroll the container into view, we can affect them individually to behave once the container scrolls into view, since they all live in the same container, right? So I'm gonna add a new animation. This is going to be ticket flips, we'll call it. First one we can target is our card wrapper on the left side here. And what we want it to do when the section scrolls into view, we want this to rotate. And it's going to rotate 180 degrees on the y-axis and 10 degrees on the z-axis. Great, so we see our poster flip through. That's what we want, because remember we have our perspective set and we have the back face visibility hidden, so instead of seeing the ticket picture backwards, we see that turn away and the poster on the back remain facing us. Okay, great. So we've got that rotate on the left card, and I'm also going to add a move on the card wrapper as well, just so it lowers itself down a little bit. And that's going to lower down 30 degrees. Great. And I'm going to affect the delay and the duration for all of them at the end. I can just do Control-Shift and do it all at once with the ease effect too, just so I can keep it easy. So that one's good. And we're still in the ticket flips, but now we're selecting a different element to be affected. And we're going to click the right card. Make sure card wrapper is selected. And this one is also going to have a rotation. It's going to go 180 on the Y, same as the other one, right? Because we still want it to flip over. Z is going to be -10 because it's tilting outwards. Great. Make sure that same card wrapper is selected. And we're going to click Move. And it's going to move 30 degrees down the Y-axis. Great. Wonderful. And now we have our last one. Make sure you're affecting the card wrapper, not the ticket or the poster image itself. It's easy to click on those by mistake. So card wrapper, and this one doesn't have to move, it's just going to turn around in place. So this is just going to be a rotation of 180, right? Because we need that picture behind it. And there's the poster. Great. So I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to have the duration be 1.5 seconds, and they're all going to have an ease in for all of them. So now when so they're happening at different times, which is a little awkward, but we can change that. See how they're not grouped, they're just like individually taking up the same amount of space and time. So we want the left move and rotation to be grouped. We want the right move and rotation to be grouped, and the middle one, it's just the rotation, so that lives on its own. So now when we preview that happens like that. So the second one we're going to add a delay of 0.3 seconds. And the last one will add a delay of 0.4 seconds. So that way they just kind of trickle down. They don't all happen at the same time. So when we play that, the first one goes, the right one goes, and the middle one goes. So when we click preview for this, so we click the loading screen here, we see the title come in, and you see the cards on the bottom. They're doing what we want them to do, but it's happening before we even get there. So remember what I said about the offset? We can add that, so because right now it's technically in view, right? It thinks that we're scrolling into view because the user can already see the cards, but they're not actually focused on that part yet. So we want to just add a little offset for the ticket flips. So in our interactions, make sure we're on the ticket flips. We can add an offset here. Let's make it like 60%, so that way when they're 60% past it, we'll be able to actually watch it happen. All right, so loading happens. We see the Titanic, we see the teaser of our tickets, so the user can still see it and know, oh, I can keep scrolling, there's more content beneath here. So when we scroll 60% past it, that'll trigger our animation. But right now, the section's too short, we can't even make it that far. So I'm just gonna add some height to that. That way it'll extend itself and we can actually watch things happen. So let's make sure our ticket poster section is selected. Instead of height auto, I'll add height of 1000 pixels. So now it'll scroll down ways, and then we can actually scroll past and see what's going on. All right, so loading screen, and 3 seconds for the title of that, and then we've got our tickets, and then when we scroll past, woohoo, they're flying. Yay, they spin and they work and they maintain 3D perspective. You can actually just combine all of them together, and you can add the delays here. I don't know if you saw how I cleaned this up. So the right one is going to delay 0.3 seconds at the bottom here, and the rotate is the same, and then that middle card is going to be 0.4 second delay. So the total duration, it was spacing them out before when I had it, but now I just kind of grouped them all together into one, but the delay still happens, so now it's a little more smooth, as you see there. Great. So we can publish this, and we can go back here, set sail, see our loading screen come in. Wait, 3, 2, 1, some fades, and when we scroll, see they fade. They spin around, come into view. Open your eyes. Wonderful. I'm gonna add a little thing to our ticket poster section. I'm gonna add some styling. I'm gonna move this up a little ways. So right now it's position. We can make the position relative for the container, and then we can move it, just add a little bit of a top so it bleeds into the top section. I'm gonna add the top position of what, maybe 40, just so you see how it kind of adds some overlap and makes it a little more three-dimensional. Great. So when we click preview, it'll be kind of poking up at the top there, which is nice. It's like enticing the reader to scroll down. And we've got our spinning animations there, great. Yeah, so I hope you guys found this helpful. 3D card rotations, it's just a div with 2 images inside. The images are positioned absolutely, and they are rotated, and they hide their back face visibility, but it's important to remember that the parent div has to have a child perspective set. 1200 usually works for pixel distance. And yeah, and then you can rotate them to behave how you'd like. In our next video, we're going to build out a content grid system just to hold some information about the movie, an overview of the title and the plot and all those things, just to get some practice using grid. So if you want to learn that, stick around and I'll see you in the next one.